What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. My name is Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Clinton, New York, and I'm joined by my co-host today, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Sean Fitzgerald, founder of LAF Advisors in Long Island, New York. Sean, we got some flurries up here today. I know you love talking about the weather, so we're going to start with that today. We got some nice flurries.
I think tomorrow it comes for me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it always hits upstate first.
Oh, yeah, of course it does.
Unless it's a hurricane.
It's that time of year, that's for sure. I want to get right into today's episode. I am super excited to have Patrick McBride, agency owner of the McBride Agency. Patrick, how are you today, sir?
If I was any better, there'd be two of me, my friend.
Oh, you and I both. It's so good to have you on. I'm super excited. And we talked a little bit. Our friends Ryan Reynolds and Brad Bull at the Agency Owners Podcast have had you on their show recently. And we want to send folks to learn about your story and how you got to where you were in starting the agency, to listen to those great programs and get into the nuts and bolts of things. But for people who maybe aren't going to jump right now just to listen to those, let's do just a quick intro to yourself, about your agency, how you got Scratch, and then we'll talk about the things that we want to get into today.
Yeah, I think 30,000 foot view. My wife and I experienced a tragedy in our lives that showed us insurance was a direction we wanted to go about 15 years ago now. It took me 10 years to actually jump into insurance. I worked for a captive agency just as a producer in the office before I opened my own in 2017. That national brand got acquired by a different one, and it was a different feel. So we basically took kind of clipped our wings, walked away from a 5.5 year captive agency, had decent revenues, nice staff. And we launched the McBride Agency as a Scratch agency. We had no contract value. We could not sell it. We had nothing, no revenues, no customers. I want to make sure that we understand that, right? There's a lot of different ways to start Scratch, and we did it the hard way, apparently. But we launched the agency April 1st of 2022 with a little bit of a chip on our shoulders. April 1st was intentional, right? It's April Fool's Day, if I can do it that day.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it wasn't a joke, right? We were serious about doing what we were doing. So that brings us, I guess, to where we are today. We're 20 months in now. December is our 21st month in business. And I'm every day. My brother actually asked me yesterday, he's leaving his job at the Bureau of Prisons and he's going to go start his own contracting company. And he asked me the question before he did this. He's like, do you remember the feeling when you left the captive world and started your office? I was like, yeah. He's like, how nervous were you? And how did you feel? And how long did it take to get over? And I laughed at him, complete hysteria, because I'm still not over it. Right. I'm still afraid every day. I'm still afraid that the lights aren't going to come on. We've got this, this month's nut. What about next month's? Yep. How do we make sure that those bills are paid for next month? Like it's still a constant battle every day. We're 20 months in. I mean, I'm not the 40-year agency owner that some guys are out there. So,
well, and that was the first question I wanted to ask you, was bring me back to that first day when you were unlocking the door and getting started, because the thing, I've talked about this before, the thing I love about podcasting is there's always the opportunity to be relatable to someone who's going through something right now. And for someone who's listening, that's thinking about doing it, we can say you're never going to feel that fear or not feel that fear, right? And I think it's a good thing. It's going to be a problem if you don't have that fear, right? I mean, then you're stagnant and all those things. But what about the feeling of like, hey, this is mine. Like this is mine to do, and this is mine to tackle. And talk to us about that feeling in those first early days, weeks, months, whatever it was.
The night before we took the name off the door, officially took the name off the door at that captive carrier, I sat in the office. I had a good friend come by. We shared a glass of whiskey and just kind of reminiscing. The office was closed. There's nothing else going on. We're officially not that brand anymore. And when we open up first thing in the morning, we'll be something new. And I can only equate it to sitting there looking at the horizon and curious of what's out there, right? When you're driving down the shore of whether the ocean or a lake, and you look across the river, whatever it is, and you see the mystery on the other bank, right? I know it's on the bank 10 feet in front of me, and it's gross and it's mossy and it's wet and it's dirty. But when you look across the river, the unknown is beautiful, right? The anticipation, the surprise, the excitement of getting to learn and explore, I can only equate that feeling to that. right? Stepping off on the first step of a 1,000-mile trip with one step, that excitement, it can't be replaced. And all the fear in the world, all the, I think I'm going to get sick, all the migraines, all the stress, all the extra hours, all the, the sacrifice that we make is worth that feeling. And you're, no matter how afraid I am, I'm still chasing that high. I haven't felt it since that day. And there are some points along the way we've been able to celebrate some incredible successes in our first 2 years here. But I still haven't felt that again. So if anybody's out there on the fence, you're never going to find a better high than that first morning, walking in the door, knowing that it's yours, knowing that our staff stayed with us. Like, we didn't lose staff. So we kept everybody on board. They all came with us, and knowing that they trusted us, man, that was the feeling.
Yeah,
that was
Patrick,
the piece.
You know what I think is really cool about the nervousness that you mentioned before is, like, I feel like the nervousness is good. Like, it keeps you sharp. It keeps you hungry. Right.
Yeah.
You hit it right on the head. Like, that does not, it hasn't gone away from me, and I've had the agency for 3 years. I totally agree with you on that. Also too, I don't know if you felt the same way. Obviously extremely nervous, but also like an extreme weight off your shoulders. I clearly remember after that first day, I was so happy. I'm not sure don't tell my wife. I'm not sure I've ever been happier outside of marriage. You know what I mean? Seriously, I was so happy that I made the jump. I'm doing this on my own. It just made me feel really good. So I don't know if you had that same feeling.
There was an incredible weight. And I guess some of this, we were in that captive scenario for a couple of years, and we had wanted to go independent. We had thought about it. We'd examined it. My wife finished her undergrad degree during that time, and her keystone project for her business management degree was taking a captive insurance agent and going independent, and what that looked like, and how the funding looked, and what, like, this whole massive collegiate level, MBA level business plan we had.
Wow.
And we just adopted it. So
very cool.
There was a plan to do this, but that excitement, man, if you could bottle it, I think that's what we're all chasing. I think that's what entrepreneurs chase every day.
Yep.
It's
true.
That.
True. So tell us a little bit about what you got going on now. Like, what lines of business are you going after? Do you have a niche in anything specific?
Yeah, we are a niche in kicking our local competitors' booties.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
That's the best response we've got.
I don't know how PG we should be here, so we're going to be super nice.
Let it out. That just got me fired up. I'm going to go run through a wall right now.
Yeah,
that's good stuff.
Yeah, man. That the chip on the shoulder doesn't stop. You want to talk about it. We're going to improvise. We're going to adapt. We're going to overcome. Our business was built on referral partners, on homeowners, referral partners, right? The loan officers, the realtors, everything that we'd all been taught the last 5, 6, 7 years in the insurance world, that's where you go. These are the solution aware customers. All we have to do is be a trusted advisor to their trusted advisor, and we immediately win. And our business was built on it. And without that, we would have no foundation. So we have an incredibly strong foundation, and have an entire team built around personal lines and I think the shortest tenured person has been working for us for 3 years now.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Yeah.
So talk to us about building the team around personal lines, because I know we're going to get into the story about how you're focusing on commercial, and I really want to dive into that and that transition for you.
Yeah.
But talk to us about, in the McBride agency, of, okay, I'm building this team for personal lines, and it is over here, and it is doing well, and how you got there.
So first thing we did was realized I'm a one pitch pitcher, right? Like, I'm good at one thing, and that's all I'm going to do. So we hired to my weakness. We found the CSR receptionist, account executive. We found that person that was tremendous at the follow-up and the care for the long-term client. I want to be able to go out. I'm the hunter, right? I want to create the relationship. I want to create the connection. I want to go create the next relationship and create the next connection. Once that connection's made, my dopamine is over. I do not get excited about making policy changes. I get excited when I see that client at dinner and I'm out and they just walk by. They're like, "Hey, we bought a new car and your team took care of us and they were incredible." That's the dopamine I'm gonna go from there. because I see it as an expectation. If I changed your vehicle, that's easy. That's so simple. I don't get that rush. So we found the people to do that first. So we hired in someone to take off that back end. And it really was like, I'm terrible at getting signatures. I'm terrible at making sure report cards are uploaded for good student discounts, and terrible at alarm discounts. I'm terrible at that side of it. So we found somebody who's good, and they were exceptionally good. And they ran me in circles. And we actually, in the ad, this is the only person on our staff out of 5 that we actually put an ad out there on Indeed or anywhere else. Everybody else has come to us because of the culture we're building. In part of that job description actually said, must be able to herd cats. And in the interview, like, I'm the cat. Like, there's no question. You have to be able to keep me focused on what I need to do, and you do your job. So that was step one. It very clearly hired on my weakness and make sure that I could run in a straight line as fast and as hard as possible, and that they would go do that next to me in their own lane. Step 2 was we actually we got so busy on that side with me as the producer and that service side, we had to hire a second CSR just with the way that captive carrier is working. The service load, the service times, the hold times became incredible. To maintain our level of customer care, we had to hire a second person. So we did. And as we that was perfect for us because they were a great team. Kind of any entry level stuff, the newer person would handle anything that needed research or review or real in-depth nuance. That existing CSSR is what we called her at that point. She kind of took over from there, and they were incredible together. She started running all renewal appointments and making sure those renewal requests were done. And she was evaluating risk at renewal, and she'd been with us for years. So that was an easy transition. When we went independent, we basically let her loose on the front end, and she was now our personalized producer. For all the inbound we had, all the referral relationships we had, they all had a good relationship with her. It was a very natural and very organic transition for us. And she has absolutely crushed everything I've ever done. Because all she focuses on is personalized production. She doesn't have to worry about the automated campaigns. She doesn't have to worry about the tech stack, or does this system do that, or how does this tagging work, or how does this Zapier action work, or what platform should I use, or where's payroll have to come from? She just shows up and does her job, and she is outstanding at it. So we built those two worked together before really well as a CSR team. And when we went independent, we basically kind of separated out that entry level CSR, kind of took the step up, and she has been incredible there, and she's really taken the ball and ran with it. And then Rachel, who's that producer, she has really been able to take everything that she saw me do, 10 feet away from me for all those years. She was able to kind of mimic or mirror and learn from all those experiences and be able to take that ball and run with it. Like, and I think I've used that analogy twice, but without question, our ability to jump into commercial is solely predicated on the fact that they are such a strong team, and they've been able to accomplish so much together without fail.
And here's a question for you: when developing that team, I mean, and you said that there were some you have brought from the previous agency you had. There's some new hires and all that. Talk to me about the conversation of hiring for the seat on the bus versus hiring for getting in the bus and finding that seat, hiring the person versus hiring the position, and your experience on what you've learned throughout doing that.
So what we'll notice is, to reemphasize, a lot of the people that we have on staff, most of the people we have on staff have come to us. So they see the culture we're building, they're looking for a role, they want to change, they see our culture, and they say, hey, can I be a part of what you're doing in some capacity or another? And some folks has worked really well, and they're still on staff, and they're still out there doing their job right now. Some folks, they come on board and they think they love the idea of our culture, but they don't understand the work that it takes to build it, and they're not willing to buy in. And they disappear typically within 6 months. And I am 100% okay with that. Mm-hmm. I'm very clear in the interview process. I'm going to be very honest about who we are and what we do and how hard we want you to work. I drop the F-bomb in the interviews. If I think you're going to fit, let's be careful. I'll drop an F-bomb in the interviews because while I don't swear at people, I swear with people. I have a very colorful vocabulary. So, we have a phrase in our office, get the F out. And the F really stands for friction. So really, I have a keynote around that. Like you get the F out. Like, let's remove the friction for our customers, for our staff, for ourselves. Like, that's how we be better. And I'll ask the question, how do you feel if I say the F word in the office? But I'll say the actual word. And if they wince, even if they say yes, and they're the best candidate possible, if they wince, I know that they won't be their true and authentic selves in the office, and neither will the rest of our team. And I'm the one with the colorful language. Everybody else is really okay. They're much, much better and way more professional than I am. But having that authentic piece is a core of what we're doing. So when we hire, I think to answer the question, you can interview a lot of people for a lot of roles. And you could probably take anyone on your staff and in the interview process, you can see how they could fit in almost any role, right? You could take producers and you know that they could be service people and they could do this. It's just task operations, right? It's what it is. Finding that point where they're honest with you and honest with themselves on what fulfills them is how you have to get down to it. What's their intrinsic value? What do they find that's important to them, that defines them, that makes them more, I guess, happy, right? How do you find what makes them happy every day? So we ask a very specific question, and the core of what we do it's not original. Our hiring ethos or methodology is based on Patrick Lencioni and the Ideal Team Player, I think is the book. Ideal Team Candidate. Don't quote me if I'm wrong, but go find that. Patrick Lencioni is the author, and he has a tremendous self-assessment and questionnaire that kind of goes with it, and it drives between the humble, hungry, and smart piece, right? So humble enough to know you're not always right, hungry enough to know that you want something bigger than what you have, and the emotional intelligence, that social and emotional intelligence that goes with how to read a room and making sure that different scenarios call for different words and different attitudes and different dispositions. So can they match those pieces? And the last part of that is that culture. But the question we ask that drives, are you good for service or are you better for sales, it's simple. If I said, hey, Sean, the last question I have for you today is, I'm going to give you $25,000 to start your own business. What kind of business is it? And you just watch them. You watch the gears turn for a second. They're a little nervous, but the answer they give tells you what makes them tick. How they answer that question is an intrinsic part of everything they are. If they say, I'm going to go buy these widgets, I'm going to put my face on them and I'm going to go sell them. Or if they say, I don't have a product I would sell, but how would I serve a community? How would I help someone? If you find that drive, is it a product? Is it a sale? Is it a marketing? Or is it a service-based business? You automatically know what direction these people are going to go in. And there's really only, in our industry, there's only two directions, right? There's the sales and the producer side, or there's the account management service, that tending, that caring, that nurturing role inside of our agencies that we all need. And that nurture is so important when you've got, especially like me, right? Like I'm the cat that just needs the dopamine rush. When I need that service done, when I need that nurture done, I have to have that person that can do that for us.
Sure.
That answer your question? I feel like I kind of went off on a tangent there.
No, it really did. I just think it's such, especially for scratch agents, if you start off with just you, there's so many questions around like, hey, if I have a VA, now do I go for a producer or do I go for an account manager? And it's like, I've had the conversation a lot with Brett Young too. And it's like, find the right person, then find the seat where they fit. Yeah, exactly. and that like, you never really think of it that way. Everybody thinks of, I got to find a salesperson. I need to find an account manager, rather than we got to find Betsy who wants something different, wants to be a part of us. And how is Betsy going to fit into our organization? Where can we make it so it works for all of us? Yeah. That absolutely answer my question. So let's pivot into the commercial and talk to us about that.
Hold on 2 seconds. I just want to ask you one question, Patrick, about the first hire specifically, because I think our audience can maybe get some value from that. You guys having the MBA style business plan. When was your first hire? Was it when you had a certain amount of revenue? When was it you had a certain amount of premium? Or was it solely based off the fact that the workload was starting to get crazy and you needed that person? I'm just curious how, like, the timing of that worked.
It was definitely that I suck at this part of the job. I have to find someone to do it. Okay. And it was
just purely weakness.
Purely weakness. Our agency started in February of 2017. By the end of March of 2017, I had made that hire.
Wow.
So, and in all fairness, for everyone listening, right, there's a lot of, I want to be vulnerable and open. Like, that first hire was my wife, and she didn't take a paycheck. So it really was, hey, Patrick, I need you home 15, 20 hours more a week. Cause you're in here and you're doing everything you can.
Yeah.
to make every end meet and every I dotted and every T crossed, and you're so concerned. So that first hire was, she's like, hey babe, I need you home 20 more hours a week. I said, that's great. You just got a part-time job. And she laughed at me and I said, no, seriously, they're coming to teach me how to do the filing because I haven't done it yet. And corporate will be there tomorrow. Can you be there at 9? She laughed, she scowled, and she said, yeah. So she showed up and she lasted in that role. She's still technically in a role in our office, but she's not here every day. She doesn't touch a lot of pieces. She's more supervisory operations, kind of that direction side as she finishes up an internship for her degree path now. But what we did, I think, so that was February of 2017. We actually made a real hire in June of the next year, but we tried different producers because we thought Misty would work. And we finally replaced her, and we hired earlier than we thought we would, but hiring because of weakness was the first thing we had to do. From there, once we had an operational team, we could go and we could let people come in the office who were a part of our culture and could actually help us accomplish our goals. But that core team has to exist first. So if it's just a solo operation, you've got to find your partner. You've got to find the person that offsets your weaknesses. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to double down on what you do well. And then you're never going to be able to train someone to replace you at 80% of your capacity. And that's what we've done. And now, again, Rachel she was doing 70, 80% of what I did when we first launched. She's doing 130, 140% of what I did before, because now we've trained her in this role for the last 19 months with the same leads. She's doing double the business I did. And that's exactly what we wanted.
Very nice. All right. So let's roll into the commercial stuff now. So you start getting into commercial. What does that whole vision look like for you, and how's that going?
Yeah. Were you commercial at the previous agency too, or was it
strictly personal? Yeah.
Strictly personal. Okay.
Yeah, strictly personal. So that first captive place, they didn't have a commercial market. So we didn't know how to do it. We didn't have a lot of training in there. We didn't have the kind of the experience or the products to back up. Whether we had the experience or not was irrelevant. So we focused on the fundamentals. And I'm a big fan of staying in your lane and doing what you're good at. Every time one of those contests come around by the carriers, we just kind of look at it, we laugh, and we move on. Because if it takes you out of your already existing lane, you're just going to slow yourself down. So we've ignored those for the most part. And if you're, there are some carriers that help us drive that production during certain times of the year with what we already do. But anything that takes us out of our lane, we said no to. So commercial was an interesting piece because we've always wanted to get there. It's always been something that was interesting, but I needed a foundation of personal lines to make sure that I wasn't going 6 weeks between accounts. Again, I have a dopamine addiction, right? Like the ADHD is real. And that's not just the Gen Zs talking about how everybody's ADHD. Like I'm a high functioning ADHD person who's unmedicated, and I have been for about 25 years. And I go through all the swings that any neurodivergent person would go through. You see me now, I'm great. 7 p.m. tonight, I'm going to feel like I'm the worst person in the world and I can barely put my kids to bed because it was a tough day and now my brain doesn't work. And the mood swings are legit. Thank God for a good wife and really wonderful kids. So commercial was a challenge, and I wanted a new challenge. I wanted something to learn. I wanted something to conquer. I knew that there were some agencies local that they're aging. And they're not a weakness. They're not a threat in our communities. They're opportunities, because I know as we grow our name, as we grow our potential, and they step out or they retire or they sell their books, whether they sell it to me or not is irrelevant. I absolutely know that our position in the marketplace is becoming solidified, and the next guy will never have an opportunity to step up or stand beside us as we continue to grow in our knowledge and our value. So ask any questions you want to on the commercial side. Like it's a really fun, I don't want to call it an experiment because that makes it sound like if it doesn't work, we're going to do something different. We're all in on commercial.
So how'd you start going after it prospecting wise?
Prospecting. Well, I joined Killing Commercial, and I don't know if I should throw a shout out. I mean, I definitely should throw a shout out to David Carruthers. This is it's not a commercial for him, but it really is. I cannot tell you. I have spent a ton of money on all the courses, on all the gurus, on all the people, and all the coaching. And I have never actually seen, other than the initial coaching, I've never seen the community that surrounds what David's built with Killing Commercial come beside and actually help propel us to where we are. So we knew what we wanted to do and we tried it without it. And everywhere I kept turning, David just kept popping up. And I listened to every podcast and I listened to everything he ever said. And I listened to, multiple podcasts between him and Ryan Hanley and Jason Cass and all the insurance guys podcasts. I mean, everything I could listen to gobble up anything surrounding commercial insurance. I just wanted to learn. Yeah. And coming out of the bicycle industry for years, I was the expert. So coming into the insurance world, even though I'd been in it for 5 or 6 years, it's so much different. And there's so many different facets that I could know everything about personal lines. I can understand all the forms, all the exclusions. When I moved to commercial, it is so different and every carrier is so different. So David helped us kind of narrow that down. He helped us understand that there needs to be a niche and we need to focus in pretty heavily. So we found it's still relatively broad for, I think, what we should be doing. But as we continue to find success, we're narrowing that niche every day. And, when we bring on 3 different garage door installers, guess where we start to focus our next prospecting call on, right? When we have 15 HVAC companies, we're doing better there than we are with electricians. So we keep pushing that direction and we start to narrow this down a little bit with our contractors and our manufacturers. So constant evaluation on that niche side has been important for us. But the ability to find a mentor and sit under as a pupil and realize that I don't have to know it. I don't need to know it all today, but by God, I can find the friggin' information.
Yeah. Expand on that.
Oh, I don't know. That was supposed to be a soundbite, Stephen. I have no idea. Yeah, I'm just
came out really good. Here's why I want you to expand on it, because here's what I'm thinking. You talked about the business planning in the beginning, and then you talk about how you look around your community and look around at your competition, and the commercial guys there are aging and all of that. It's all, what's so impressive is all of the pre-planning that you're doing, right? And I want to be, sure. I'm not going to be in a position where, okay, they're selling their agencies this year, I better learn commercial. I'm going to be in a position where I know what I'm doing by the time that happens and all of these things. So walk us through, because I think when you talk to, and you can certainly attest to this, because when you talk to a personal lines agent that's only done personal lines and that's all they do and that's all in their wheelhouse and looking at commercial, it's this big mountain, right? And it's like, where do I start? And I mean, you went right to the education, you went right to the surround yourself with the mentorship and all those things. But like, talk to us kind of about that feeling of preparing for that more and opening those doors of opportunity for yourself in that marketplace.
Man, that's awesome. I think that's probably one of the best deep dives into a response I've ever heard. So I appreciate that. And I hope everybody listening really appreciates that. So our first thing, part of the Killing Commercial process is going through and creating a business plan and identifying what an ideal prospect is for us. So that started with what I thought was the right thing to do. And I just wrote down who I wanted, right? I want this type of contractor. I want this type of revenue. I want them to be just down the street from me. And I live in a rural town, a small town in rural Illinois. Like we tell people Chicago, but there's a lot of freaking corn between me and Chicago, right? There's at least an hour drive before I hit a suburb. So, and then there's a lot of suburbs between me and the actual city. So my clients don't live down the street. My perfect client isn't going to be someone who walks in my office, who's not going to see my name on a billboard somewhere. Like they just don't exist. What really happened was we reverse engineered this a little bit. I went to the carriers I had direct appointments with and I said, hey, what are you good at? What are you great with? What do you love? What do you not love? What kicks these people out of contention? What is the absolute best thing you guys do that you don't see enough of? Where is that conversation at? Having the conversations and relationships with our underwriters. And I'll be honest with you, we don't submit the perfect client to these carriers every single time because they're off a little bit, right? Well, they do this and they don't do that, or they have this in place, or we're helping them put this in place. And, all of these different pieces that everyone wants the perfect client, right? And I'll be honest with you, I think one of the things I've learned is this: carriers don't want the perfect client. Carriers don't want the guy with the minimum mod, and they don't want the guy with all the discounts and all the credits, because the profit margin is so thin that one claim is going to blow up their revenue or going to blow up their profitability for years. Carriers don't want that. Carriers want somebody that's real and has that understanding and sees a claim and puts action in place. And maybe they don't have the best mod. Maybe they don't have the best claims record, but they see a history and then they're able to put that forward. That's what the carriers are looking for right now.
That's a great point.
It's an incredible shift. And maybe they did 3-4 years ago. I don't know. I wasn't in commercial 3-4 years ago. Right. But those relationships and those conversations with our underwriters, that started it. And when I bring a garage door installer to this particular carrier, that's not on their hot list. But by God, we've written 3 good ones with them, 3 really profitable accounts with really good revenues, with really good margins. And they came back with tremendous rates. It's not on their hot list still. And I'm not going to tell anybody it is. Because when I walk up to my underwriter and I go, hey, this is what we got. This is just like this, but we did this and this. We helped them deploy a return to work program. They do have some claims. Here's their new safety manual. Here's their incident reporting process. Here's their safety meetings. And we help provide that value. And we show that to the underwriters. Underwriters need to see value just like clients do. And we can have that conversation. The insurance, for an insurance podcast, the insurance is secondary in commercial. The policy is secondary. The value you provide. I think I posted it somewhere yesterday or recently. Price only matters in the absence of value.
Mm-hmm.
My job is not to talk about price. I cannot control the price. Steve and Sean, no one listening, you cannot control the price. It's not your job. It's not your prerogative. You can ask for credits. You can debit the account to make sure that you're not going to lose your tail if they have a small claim or they're not going to have some massive increase. And there's some cool strategies out there you can do. But no matter what, you can't control the price. Stop focusing on the things we can't control. We have to stop focusing on that. We have to stop focusing on things we can't control. Focus on what you can. If price only matters in the absence of value, and the value is only the price, you don't matter anymore. And if I don't matter, what's going to happen when that rate changes next year? The client's gone, right? Weeks of work, hours of work, thousands of dollars of technology, and all of these things that we do and we tout and we're excited about. And I've got my modern t-shirt on today, right? Like, I'm telling you, none of it matters if the value that you bring to the table is exclusively based on price. So you have the conversation with underwriters. You understand the market. You understand your customer. You bring value to the customer and you create a narrative that talks to the underwriters and the carriers and says, this is why this is a great client. And the only way you get great at that is by doing it over and over and over and over again, right? The 10,000 hour rule.
Repetition.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Small, repeatable steps. Like, so my time in the military taught me that I'm half stupid. And my time in the military showed me that there's a lot of people a lot more dumb than me. Right. Like, I'm only half stupid. I know some real stupid folks out there.
Second that.
And if you're listening, I love you anyways. They're not listening to podcasts. They're full stupid. Right. So
not our audience. No,
no, not your audience. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's probably some half stupid folks out there listening. You know, if I am, somebody else is. It's got to be. I'm not that smart. I'm not that pretty. I'm not original in my thought. I've just been able to pull some things, pull good things from good people. And I think that's part of it. All of us are here because somebody did it before us and somebody set the stage for us to be successful.
Yeah.
We have to remember that every day.
Yeah. Patrick, talk to me, because Steven and I were actually talking about this earlier today. Talk to me about how you went from personal lines to commercial. And I bring this up because you brought up the dopamine hit and how you like to be a hunter, right? And I recently made a transition where anything that comes into my agency that's personal lines related, I pass on to my producer. And I'm solely only working on commercial moving forward. But one of the hardest things I found to deal with is that I don't have the same volume as I used to have. So where I would have a dopamine hit 7 times a day because I'm talking to different people. This person's buying a new house. This person's buying a new car. They need a new policy. Boom, boom, boom. Sale. Commercial's the complete opposite. You know, it's a little slower. I've had somebody in my pipeline since September, you know.
And they might go in October. They might go next month. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
man.
Maybe they wait till March. Yeah. So it's like,
I've
actually
struggle.
found that. Yeah, this is for me. So, and this is, I've done this now. I think it's a little over maybe around 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I found that to be the hardest thing for me. And I keep battling with myself. Oh, should I maybe go back into personal? Because I love the volume. I love the volume and the quick. And then I'm like, no, Sean, remember why you did this. And then talk to Steven so he puts me back on the ledge. And then, keep going after commercial.
Hold back up.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, Patrick, do you have that same struggle at all?
Oh man, you have described most of my brain, most of the day. Just 100 different directions. You are so on the right track with your thought process. I think the key there is you've got a Steven to pull you back up. You've got to have that. You've got to have that buddy, right? You've got to have that accountability and that partner who is invested in you, whether you succeed or fail. They're investing in you, right? Steven's got your back, whether your agency's profitable or not, right? I have friends and colleagues that some of them aren't even in the industry that will push me and kind of walk me back. But having someone, shout out to the greatest friend of all time, Ciara Gravier. Like she is,
oh, we love Ciara.
She is the person that will pull me out of that hole and go, no, you're smarter than that. Like you're only half dumb. Don't be all the way dumb. And she kind of walks me back. And having relationships where you can vent for just a minute and then you're done. And when they talk, you're like, yeah, you're right. Okay, let's get going. Like, let's, like LFG, right? Let's go again. So reset and move forward. From there, man, I think here's what you have to work on. And this is something that we've really doubled down on the last 5 or 6 months is the dopamine is so few and far apart. That just means you don't have enough in your pipeline. And that's a hard thing for a lot of us to swallow. Right? Like, man, this is a $20,000 revenue account. I don't need a lot of these in my pipeline. Yes, you do. Yeah, you do. What's your close rate? Well, my close rate's 80%. Like, right, but what's your sales cycle? Well, my sales cycle is 9 months. Okay. So you need 20 of those in your account to make sure you're dropping one every 6 weeks. But I don't want to drop one every 6 weeks. I want to drop one every week. Right. Well, now I need 700 of those in my pipeline.
Yep.
How am I doing it? How do I have them? What's my list? What's my criteria? When's my prospecting pipeline? What's my sequence? What's my rhythm? How am I reaching out? Am I dropping off coffee? Am I dropping off marketing slicks? Am I seeing them in person? Or am I just emailing them? Or am I just being a pain in the butt over the phone all the damn time? How does that work? It's a scale problem. Most of us don't have a lead problem. We have a marketing problem, right? Or even the other way around. We don't have a marketing problem. We have a lead flow problem. We don't know what to do with the lead when we get it because it's so few and far between that we go, well, how do we do this last time? Let's do it different this time. We can't create a consistent enough process because we're not doing it enough. We don't know what is or isn't working. So
very true.
Kind of to echo what you said, the struggle is real. And the last big commercial client we dropped was the end of October. It's November 1st, I think was the effective dates. And we've got some on the hook right now. We've got 2 that are both $200,000 accounts that they need to go. Like they have to go this month. They're effective January 1st. Like, we'll get one of them.
Got a couple of
those. I know we'll get one of them. It's just a matter of making sure that you have enough of those leads and finding that niche, identifying that ideal prospect, realizing they don't have to be down the street. In this day and age, you guys are in New York and I'm in rural Northern Illinois, right? I've never even been to Long Island. All I know about New York is what I watched on The Sopranos. Like, and that's not even real New York, right? That's New Jersey. Like, and then Hamilton, right? Like those are my New York references at this point. So the world is smaller than we think and our clients are ready for it. COVID pushed them right into our technology filled laps.
So for commercial for you, are you prospecting? Are you cold calling? Are you doing the marketing drops? Are you doing a little bit of everything? What's the attack for you for commercial?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. We've got a couple different sequences that we run. Cold calls is a big piece. And these clients are used to it. This is not a foreign object for them. So when you cold call a homeowner's prospect, they're like, oh my God, shut up, get away. They hang up, right? The number of hangups on homeowners cold calls is dramatically different than on work comp policies, 60 to 90 to 120 days before renewal. and we understand that they're paying at least $30,000 to $50,000 in premium, right? Like, so that cold call is a big piece. That's the number one. We do, depending on where they are in that cycle, we'll do some drop-ins through that front end and then through the rest of the year. So kind of building into next year. And then so my office is right next to a hardware store, one of the big ones for the contractors local. So we have dropped a pin on the contractor, and we may or may not have a custom audience going to people who go to that hardware store next door for all their contracting needs, who match this certain profile. And it's just general branding. Again, it's that local branding source. When contractors think contractor insurance in a 20-mile radius, by God, they're going to think of me, right? They're going to see our name and our face and our logo. That's all I care about. They don't need to know Patrick. They just need to know our agency.
And last question I have around this, and then we'll look to wrap this up here. When we're, I want to talk specifically to the agent that's looking to go from personal to commercial, right? And dive into more of when you did that. Talk about like the self-confidence of believing you're allowed to be in that room. You deserve to be in that room. And I'm going to butcher it, but I'm thinking of David's, podcast intro. You're the only one that doesn't believe you need to be in that appointment and all that. Is that something you struggled with? How'd you get over it? Is it not something you struggled with, and why? And tell us about that. Because I think, you look at the basics we hear all the time when we talk about going from personal to commercial. The premium may be, $500,000 compared to a $5,000 homeowner's policy. But, the basics of it can really be similar. The understanding of it can be similar, but it looks so much bigger because of the premium and this and that. Let's have a conversation about that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Strip the zeros out. That's my goal. Strip the zeros out. There's a person sitting across the table from me whose job, and on the bigger accounts, that person normally doesn't own the business, right? They're the risk manager. They're the controller. They're in charge of the insurance decisions. They typically make the decision, good, bad, or indifferent. Strip the zeros away. Do the job right. Price only matters in the absence of value. I'll say it again. But you're right. I mean, in that, every time you ask that question, Carruthers' quote goes through my head. You're the only one that doesn't believe you belong in this meeting. The prospect has already justified it by setting the meeting. You're there. Strip the zeros out. Figure out a way to solve the problems, right? My, without question, my ADHD in my life, I'm in therapy on a regular basis. And I giggle because I have to. It's a serious subject, right? I mean, it's real. So I go to a therapist every 3 weeks. And every time I talk to him, there's two things he always says to me. And one of them is strictly defined around believing in yourself, right? And making sure that you can understand who you are and what you're good at, and just knowing that you're you. So it focuses on stop doing and just be. So stop doing, start being. If Patrick is just Patrick, all I have to do is be myself. I don't have to pretend to be anything other than who I am in that meeting. Patrick shows up. Patrick has real care. Patrick has real concern for their business. Patrick has a real desire to help, right? The dopamine rush comes from the success of the meeting. But what's the reason I'm in the meeting? Why am I doing what I'm doing every day? Why do you, Mr. Insurance Agent, Mrs. Insurance Agent, Miss Insurance Agent, whatever you might want to call yourself out there, why are you doing what you're doing? That's what matters. Who we are matters so much more than what we do, and we take that for granted every day. We talk about personal and commercial. We talk about this risk versus that risk, or this niche versus that niche. None of it matters. It's all about the personal connection and how you do it, why you do it. Why you do it matters so much more. When you strip the zeros away and you remember that you're still you, whether they say yes or no, it doesn't change you. I tell this to my kids all the time, and they argue, right? So I've got 4 kids from 9 to 21. So, and you'd think some days you can't figure out who the 21-year-old is, right? Like, it just, if you had siblings growing up, your mom said the same thing to you too. I can't tell which one of you 6. And I was never the young one, right? I'm the oldest of 6 kids. And going through this, if one kid says to the other one, your shirt's purple, and he's clearly wearing a black t-shirt, does it change the black t-shirt? Does it change the actual t-shirt? No matter what you call it, no matter what that person says about it, it doesn't change the t-shirt. I don't care if that's their perception or not. Maybe they're colorblind. Maybe they've got purple colored glasses on and somehow my t-shirt's purple to them. It doesn't change the truth. So understanding that truth, and this is probably deeper than what you were hoping here.
Oh, this is good. This is good.
You can't change the intrinsic value you walk in with. And every person out there, every person has an intrinsic value, right? Michael Jordan was the GOAT, is the GOAT. There's no question about it. He tried to play baseball. He was good. I'm not going to go into the dichotomy of how he wasn't a good baseball player. He's way better than any of us. He was the best basketball player to ever play. He tried a different sport. He wasn't as successful at it. All of us have to find where we belong. And if you want that commercial, there's a reason that Jordan was as good as he was. If he just stopped playing, if he just stopped practicing, he just stopped driving, he just stopped finding his own motivations, he wouldn't have had that chip on his shoulder. He'd have never played as long, as successful, and as hard, and won as many championships as he did. You've got to find what drives you. I've got a chip on my shoulder. Maybe I shouldn't have one. Maybe my therapist will tell me, no, my therapist will absolutely tell me that that's not the healthiest thing in the world, right? But I know what drives me. I know there's an us against them or me against them mentality here in my own head, right? Yeah. I know that we do things a certain way. And when my competitors retire, they're retiring because they can't compete anymore. And they're just like, you know what? It's better to sell and walk away and take my paycheck and stop McBride from taking all my business. I'm okay with that too. You can sell to me or you can walk away because I'm that good. Like I'm okay with either.
Yeah, it's few and far between. We talked about this on the Brett Young episode, how using your chip for the right thing. Remember that conversation, Stephen?
Sure do.
How it's few and far between. Not a lot of people do it, but the people that I think have a chip on their shoulder that can use it for fuel have a clear advantage, in 100%. My opinion.
100%. Patrick, man, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to join us and provide so much value here. I think it came out amazing, and I'm definitely going to go back and listen to it a couple times.
Awesome.
For anybody who wants to reach out to you, anything you said that they want to touch base with you on, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
So you can go to the website, themcbrideagency.com. My email's listed under the About Us page, or find me on socials. I'm super active on Facebook and LinkedIn. I think no matter what time of day, I get those notifications. That's not completely true. There's a 4-hour block of my day that I don't get any social notifications when I get home. So from 5:30 p.m. till 9:30 or 10:30 p.m., I don't get any social notifications.
I love that.
Yeah, it's
great idea.
We talk a lot about the sacrifice and what we do in the business. There's a reason we all do it. And mine's not to be on the podcast. I love you guys. I super appreciate being here, and I love being able to provide any insights or help that I can in my insecurities and my own neurodivergence. If that can help someone, man, I'm super excited. But I don't do it for this. Cool. I do it for those 4 little hamsters at home that sometimes are absolute buttholes, but most of the time they're absolutely awesome, and I cannot wait to see them succeed in this world. Whether they take over the agency or not, I want them to be successful. I don't want them to be able to see success and understand that it took some work to get there. That's why I do this. So,
love it.
Man, I appreciate it. Yeah, but social, Facebook, LinkedIn, email me. I'm open. Always willing to help.
Amazing. Thanks again for taking the time, everybody. That's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, in your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.